My throat is hurting, called the little man through his megaphone. Toll looked anxious. Have a rest, he said. We've got to go out now, but we'll take you with us. Put the bracelet back on, said Toll to Jax. It will be safest with you, otherwise someone might sit on it. Jax agreed, mouthing, or eat it. Solo nodded. They checked the little man again through the microviewer. He looked exhausted. Lie down, whispered Jax. Don't be afraid. You'll be safe with me. Come on, said Solo. We've got to get to Petrol and the others. When Solo, Toll and Jax arrived, the tunnel kids crowded around to meet them. There's amazing news, said Squid, looking excited. Tell them. Petrol looked shy at first, but once she started, there seemed to be no stopping her. There are these guys at a pizza shop in the city. They got a message from our cousin, and they taught us how to telepath, added Squid. Oh, yes, said Petrol. Do you know how? Solo, Toll and Jax nodded. Great, said Dodger. Now we can keep in touch. Solo nodded. Petrol hurried on. Anyway, our cousin lives on Dragol Island. His name is Owl, said Squid. Petrol nodded. He thinks he's discovered something about Isla Thieve, Petrol went on. He's written an article about her and he hopes to publish it in his local newspaper. But when he told Isla he was going to call his article Isla's Homeless Children, as precious as her necklace of pearls, she was furious and threatened to sue him. Nose scoffed. She was always saying her boarding schools are for her little pearls. That's what she called us, said Petrol with a frown. Anyway, the necklace she was wearing was really ugly, but he started to wonder why Isla was so angry. Why would it upset her? Asked Toll. Wait until you hear the rest, said Dodger. Petrol nodded. Owl noticed that some of the pearls moved. Moved? Asked Jax. Yes, said Petrol, only slightly, but because the sun was shining on the pearls, the quivers caused little flashes of light. Isla kept putting her hand across the necklace, and Owl thought that maybe he was imagining things. I bet he wasn't, said Jax. Petrol nodded. Owl said he wanted to get a necklace like hers for his mum and asked where she bought hers. Solo grinned. Good move, he said. Petrol shook her head. Oh, I hate her so much. Anyway, she told Owl that Vankro Snark's men had bought her necklace at the House of Dragolin last Christmas. Squid interrupted. But Petrol asked them and they said no. Petrol hugged Squid. Weird, said Toll. Totally, said Petrol. Anyway, Owl spoke to his editor and she suggested that he interview Isla again. The big conference in Drage was his chance. This time he wore a microspec camera so he could see the pearls in detail. What's a microspeaker cam? Asked Squid. Petrol smiled at her. A microspec camera looks like sunglasses or glasses, but it has really strong lenses. You can see things right up close from far away, and you can take photos too. Petrol added, plus Owl is a tetrachromat, someone who can see millions of colours more than everyone else. Jax and Toll were almost bursting to tell their news, but decided to wait and not spoil Petrol's story. While he was there, Petrol continued, Owl thought he could see the pearls moving again, but when he got the photographs home, he realised the pearls that moved weren't pearls at all. Petrol hung her head and her lips began to quiver. In between the beads on the necklace were these little people who'd been forced to be part of Isla's horrible jewellery. Worse than that, said Dodger. One of the beads is Petrol's mum, and the other is her dad, and one of the others is her dad. Petrol burst into tears, unable to control her grief. Your parents? Asked Jax. That's too horrible. Or is it impossible? Asked Toll. Petrel glared at him. My cousin doesn't lie, she said. His mentor confirmed that people have done this sort of thing in the past. It's called molecular reduction. Evil people figured out how to do it centuries ago and called it me-duction. Then it was banned, said Dodger, but the thieves figured out how to do it again. Petrel nodded. How can we get our hands on that necklace? Asked Solo. While the children sat thinking, Toll nudged Jax. We have some news as well, Jax began. Everyone looked at her. I hope it's good, mumbled Petrel. Jax shrugged. Not sure, she said. When Toll and I were on our training adventure, we went to a virtual world, and it's a long story, but we finally made our way out. Finally found our way out. Just before we left, I found a bracelet made of popcorn. I'm wearing it. Jax held out her wrist. Looks tasty, said Bullard. Jax drew back her wrist hastily. No, you mustn't, she said. One of the pieces of popcorn is actually a person, and he told us that he's from Innisfree. When we asked him how he was on a popcorn bracelet, he said he'd been kidnapped by an overlord thief. The children crowded around to get a closer look at the bracelet. As they did, a small voice could be heard calling out.